Is all prepared then? Excellent. Then it is time for our friend to be invited to the shack. Go fetch him for me, would you? And be gentle, I would not have him damaged, if it can be avoided. I'll join you at the shack shortly. I have a few last things to prepare in the sanctuary.
What is the music of life?
Silence, my brother. One Sun's Height, 4th Era, 202. Muiri was still awake and drinking at the Silverblood Inn when I walked in. I hadn't expected to see her up this late, had anticipated that I would need to catch her alone at the Hag's Cure. With as few customers as were still here, however, we were alone enough, and the ones who were still awake were all too drunk to understand anything anyhow. The target is one Elaine Dufont, an ex-lover and bandit chief, who used her to get close to the Shattershield family of Windhelm and rob them blind. The man had heard about the Butcher's actions there, the death of Frigga Shattershield, and thought to profit from their grief. In the short term, the plan worked. It seems that his fortunes are about to change. I was given his band's hideout location, and then I turned to leave. I was surprised to find her hand on my arm, holding me back. She gave me a second target as well, the remaining daughter of the Shattershields, Nilsine. The family once treated Muiri as a third daughter, but in the aftermath of Dufont's theft, they cast her out, treated her as a pariah. Nilsine's death will either prove to Tova that she still has one last daughter in Muiri, or send the entire family plummeting. Either works for Muiri. I had thought to stay in Markarth for a day or two. Seems I am back on the road to Windhelm immediately. After traveling through the remains of the night and a good portion of the daylight hours, Windhelm came into view. There is always a part of me that clenches on seeing it, that still remembers all that happened to me there. Those same events, however, are what propelled me into becoming what I am now. For the most part, I have no regrets. And why should I? Yes, I was backstabbed almost every step of the way, but why should I be angry when this is simply how the world is? I have accepted this, as I could not back then. What I come here to do is also simply what the world is. I am no longer the wielder of the weapon, responsible for what the sword does. I am the weapon now, being wielded by the hands of another. On them shall the guilt and blame be placed. I no longer feel any guilt for what I will do. After all, Was my fate not bought and paid for? I can only be what those who craft fate have made me to be. I was familiar with the routine of the Shatter Shields. I did not need to take any time to learn where Nilsine slept, nor when she would likely already be in bed. I went to Hierum and waited until nearly midnight, and then slipped into the Shatter Shield Manor, finding Nilsine already asleep in her bed on the first floor of the building, already alone. She will be found early, I'm certain, the victim of a random vampire attack. Nilsine Shattershield, perhaps it could be said that you were caught up in the events that brought us to this moment. You were in pain. I understand pain. I understand that you reacted solely to that pain, and when you could not hurt the one who had hurt you, Elaine Dufont, you chose instead to hurt the one who had brought him close. Muiri was just as much the victim as you were, but you could not admit to that without losing a target to vent your pain upon. For you, though, that was a poor choice. May you find rest from pain in the void. Nilsine Shattershield is dead. Hail Sithis. 2 Suns Height, 4th Era, 202. I remember this place. Raldbthar. Many months ago I was here, though for what reason I cannot recall. What I do remember more than anything else was entering this same room, pulling the bowstring back, ready to let my arrow fly and eliminate another bandit from existence. And then, just as my fingers were about to let loose, a voice in my head, sibilant, whispering, hissing. The words, "Not yet." Now I understand. I may not know who the voice is, though I begin to suspect, but I know why my hand was stayed. I was not to kill him then, because I would need to kill him now, when it would be far more beneficial to me and to the Brotherhood. I snuck up behind him and used my powers to still him. Elaine Dufont. When your entire world centers around yourself, then I suppose it is easy to treat everyone as mere appendages, tools to gain what you seek. You sought gold and used others to gain it. Muiri was only a means to an end, but let us remember something here, at the end. An old saying, but one that holds more than a glimmer of truth. Oblivion hath no fury like a woman scorned. Welcome to the Void, Elaine. I hope you got what you wanted from life, for yours is now over. Elaine Dufont, bandit leader, is dead. Hail Sithis. The return trip to Markarth took me along the northern route through the Reach, allowing me to make a stop at a cave I have passed many times but never entered. I never had reason to enter Blind Reach Cave, but this, according to Farron, is where this piece of a long-dead vampire will be found. Of all the things I did not want to deal with, a hagraven was among the highest of the listed items. I have never gotten over the... I will get revenge on Sanguine for that prank someday, I swear. I expected even less to be an ally to one. 2 were living here, and the one captured the other. The captured one wants to kill the first now, apparently named Petra. Having been on the receiving end of hagraven magic, I know how potent they can be in combat. That being the case, I did what I deemed to be the 2 smart things. First, I agreed. Second, I let her lead the way and do the fighting for me. The plan worked marvelously well. The hagraven gladly took point, singeing every single Forsworn here to a crisp in the process and leaving me to basically pick up all the pieces. I was even surprised when the thing kept its promise and gave me the staff it had promised for my assistance, even if said assistance had consisted mostly of putting the final arrow into Petra. So that was a thing. The vampire piece I was looking for is in my position as well, so this worked out rather well, actually. On to Markarth to deliver the good news to Muiri. Muiri was back in the Silverblood Inn, likely trying to drink away her nerves as she waited for me to return. The conversation was not long, of course. I delivered the news that Elaine was gone, and she had already heard through news couriers that Nilsine had died in a vampire attack. Knowing that there is a vampire in the Brotherhood should spread some additional fear of us, and I can't see that as a bad thing. She offered up what she had saved as payment, adding that she'd never forget me. I advised her that it might actually be in her best interests if she did. Muiri got the point almost immediately. I strode from the room and into the storming evening hours, on my way to Falkreath and the Sanctuary. I am beginning to feel that my returns to the Sanctuary are what prompts things to happen. Astrid was again waiting for me, this time to congratulate me on my first contract, though that was clearly what was not on her mind. Cicero is on her mind, and she fears him greatly. She has heard him in the chapel of the Sanctuary talking, though to whom she does not know. Naturally, she fears treachery. What leader, especially one who has recently been faced with a challenge to her authority, would not? Cicero challenging her directly would be a nightmare, and from my brief time with Vermina, I know that nightmares are only dreams, but that dreams can come true. I am therefore to spy on him. I am not happy with this, as it will require me to do something that I find about as close to something blasphemous as I'd ever thought I would do. The room is too small to simply hide in the shadows, so instead, I will be required to hide in the Night Mother's coffin. With her. I hope this is worth it, because if it ends up being nothing, I will have words with Astrid, leader of the family or not. She needs to get her ego and fear of losing power under control. Sithis and the Night Mother are our leaders, or would be, if we had a listener. She needs to let go of her fear. Before dealing with Astrid's paranoia, I spoke first to Gregor. With his final instructions, I rebuilt and rebound the Hand of Glory, binding it to my own life. The effect on him was instant, but the damage to his body is already long since done. That being the case, and with the knowledge and agreement of Astrid and the rest of the Brotherhood, he has asked that I grant him a final request and help him with one of the oldest of Brotherhood traditions. He lay down one final time, and I sent him to the void. Gregor, honored brother of the Dark Brotherhood, is dead. Sithis, receive thy servant. 3 Suns Height, 4th Era 202. I have done many questionable things in my life, I think. Most of them I feel no regret over. This, though, climbing into the coffin of a long-dead woman to eavesdrop on an insane jester, this is a new level for me. High or low, I will have to decide later. Astrid needs the reassurance, though. I'm almost certain that what she is hearing is just Cicero talking to the Night Mother and nothing more. I stood before the coffin and hesitated. Is this really required? Is this not an affront to the Night Mother? Will this not offend Sithis? I stared at that coffin for far longer than I think I should have. Had Cicero come in then, he might have had a fair number of questions of the uncomfortable variety. Indeed, I almost turned away, almost went back to Astrid to tell her to find someone else to deal with her abject paranoia. Just as I was about to, however, I heard that same hissing voice I heard in Raldbthar, and the message was once again 2 words, but far different in meaning. Embrace me. The Night Mother has spoken to me long since, and only now do I know her voice. If she calls, then what else can I do? Her will be done. Cicero entered not long after I did. Shut in the coffin, I could only barely make out his words, but in the silence I could just make them out. At first it seemed that I would owe Astrid an apology, as he indicated that the plan was moving forward, that Festus Krex, Visara, and Babette were coming around. The longer I listened, though, the more it became clear that I had been right. He was speaking to the Night Mother. And though he could not hear her replies, I found that suddenly I was. Cicero was not the listener. He was the keeper. The Night Mother made it plain, though, that her silence was now at an end. I was to go to Vollenrud and speak to someone called Amand Motier. Cicero continued his lament outside the coffin, and the Night Mother gave me the words that Cicero has been waiting to hear. I will not repeat those words here, for they are sacred in a way that I cannot describe, to be reserved for a single exchange between the Keeper and a new listener. For that is who I was. This is what Sithis had gotten from the deal involving my fate. I am to be the first listener for the Dark Brotherhood, to lead them back to the true path and ways. Cicero was, shall we say, a little exuberant in hearing me speak those words. For him it is vindication of years of traveling, keeping the coffin and corpse safe, protecting the Night Mother from all that might try to destroy her. He was loud enough that Astrid, who had been listening in the hallway, of course, burst in, expecting that I had been discovered. She was shouting at an expected traitor that didn't exist. Once I calmed her down and Cicero explained what had happened, she almost lost her mind again. I told her where it was I was supposed to go, who I was supposed to talk to, and then told her I was leaving for Vollenrud, and she shut me down hard. She sees this as a direct challenge to her authority. I may be the listener, she said, but I was to only take orders from her. Oh, this is far worse for her than I had believed, far worse for the family. Proof is given that we have a listener again, and her first thought is not of our coming glory and rebuilding, but for paltry mortal authority? And if she feels that way, well, where she goes, on Bjorn follows. I see a coming division in the family, but cannot see how it will end. For now, I will think of her outburst as a bad reaction to change she did not expect. I will do as she asks for now, and talk to Nazir for a few more of the smaller contracts, while she sorts this out in her head. 2 contracts that need fulfilling, according to Nazir. One which will be easy, and another that may not be. The easy one. Well, this is a contract that I myself might have done a sacrament to make happen had I thought of it. This will be the death of a bard in Morthal, one I have heard a number of times and cannot wait to silence. Lurbeck is, as Nazir puts it, the worst bard in all of Skyrim. I do not say this because he is an Orzamer, though this might account for his voice, but because he cannot carry a tune in a bucket, a voice that can curdle milk at 100 yards, and a face that gives Molag Bal nightmares. Nazir claims there were multiple clients for this kill. He jokes and said only one was selected, but I have to imagine we just accepted all of them. We need the money after all, even if that is not the point of what we do. The second and more difficult target is a vampire called Hearn, living here in Falkreath. He owns and operates the Half Moon Mill, along with his partner, or sister, or whatever she is, Hurt. Though the contract is only for the male, it is unlikely that I'll get away with not killing them both. This one will be a bit tricky, but as they are both lesser blood vampires, I imagine that I will be able to deal with them both relatively easily. Rather than wait around, I departed the sanctuary. Astrid has some deep thinking to do. And really, so do I. Half Moon Mill is at the top of the rise, leading north out of Falkreath, only an hour or so from the sanctuary. Here, Hearn operates the mill in plain sight of the main road, along with Hurt, who, depending on who you talk to, is either his wife or his sister, or both, and an assistant called Hissig. Those who know the signs should have known they were, all three of them, vampires long since. The contract does not specify the why of the killing this time. They don't always, of course, but I would be shocked if it wasn't related to their vampirism. Though I do wonder why the Dawnguard didn't deal with them long before a Brotherhood contract became the way forward. Regardless, when I arrived just before sunrise, Hearn was already in the house and the other two were closing things down at the mill for the daylight hours. Since I knew I would have to deal with all three of them anyhow, I took the opportunity to destroy both of them before working on Hurt. They are all lesser blood anyhow. They will be of no loss to the Volkahar. Hearn, I almost admire you. Despite your vampire status, you have tried to live on your own terms and as close to a normal person as you could. That takes a lot of willpower, determination, and a need to look back at the world and tell it to go elsewhere for its amusements. Those are usually laudable qualities, but in this case, the ending was foretold. There is no room in the world of mortals for such as we. Were it to be known, I too would suffer the fate that you are about to in time. Mortals try to make themselves out to be the strongest animals in the world, despite the obvious clues that they are not. In numbers, though, the vast ones that they have, we have little chance against them all. One of them, eventually, somewhere, sometime, is going to see what we are and rally others to remove us. I remove you today, Hearn. But in time another will come who will remove me as well. Until then, take shelter in the nothingness of the void. Hearn, vampire miller of Half Moon Mill, is dead. Hail Sithis. A long walk to the castle, and I turned over the ancient vampire piece to Ferran, who will begin infusing it into the chalice immediately. In the meantime, Fura has become aware of another group of lesser vampires who are causing problems. Their location near Windhelm makes them a little more problematic, given our false Dawnguard killing of Elder Earlydawn near there some weeks ago. I'll head for Morthal first to deal with their dying songbird problem, to what will no doubt be resounding applause, before heading to Mara's Eye Pond, where this new band of vampires are about to be removed. Not that anyone will care they are gone, for the most part. 4 Suns Height, 4th Era, 202. I timed my arrival at the Moorside Inn to be late enough that Lurbeck's performances would be over for the day. Even without the large number of people who had placed contracts on Lurbeck's life, I had enough personal experience with its croaking and noise-making, I refuse to call it singing, to know I wanted nothing to do with it. Having to listen to it once was more than enough. He was in bed, and the inn was all but deserted when I arrived. I took a room for the sake of appearances, then waited for both the tavern girl and the owner to go to sleep as well, before sneaking to Lurbic's room. It had no door, for reasons I cannot begin to guess at, but with everyone asleep, none would see what happened to him tonight. Lurbic, everyone has skills and talents in life. The bardic ones are not yours. A wise man takes the talents he has and makes the most of them. A foolish one pines for what they do not have and carries on despite knowing that they are doing nothing more than making a fool of themselves. Perhaps there is one who likes what you have created, but the majority have spoken. They have been your judge and jury, but I will be your executioner. Lurbic, live-in noisemaker of Moorside Inn, is dead. Thank Sithis. My next stop was Anger's Mill to evaluate a potential problem. Not long ago, the courier dropped off 2 letters for me, both of them problematic on multiple levels, as both are essentially the same problem with one minor variation. I will need to deal with both the same way. In short, 2 people somehow know that I am Brotherhood now. The first letter from a man called Codrier in Anger's Mill not only stated that he knew I had killed Anodius, but wanted to reward me for it. First, how did he know I did it? When I was officially in Solitude at the time, he was nowhere near us when I killed Anodius, and even if he had been, my face had been covered completely. When I claimed his reward, he made it clear that he knew who I was and why it had been done, which means that he has sealed his own death tonight when I go back through here. Idiot. Never draw attention to the fact that you know who a murderer is like this. You become a loose end to be tied up. The second is Leg Elf in Dawnstar. Essentially the same problem concerning Baetild's death, but without the offer of reward. Fools, both of them. Mara's Eye Pond was actually a decent place for a vampire to hide. The cave was small, accessed by an old cellar door likely left over from an attempt to build a cottage on the island in the middle. It was close to Windhelm, meaning a steady supply of food, should you not be able to strike at enough local travelers. Really not a bad choice, except for the idea of simply taking everyone who passed by, not only what was needed. Hoarders cannot be tolerated in vampire society. It simply calls too much attention to us. They were not only of a lesser bloodline, but all newly made as well. That speaks to another problem that at some point I will have to deal with: rampant creation of new vampires. Slowly, with purpose. That is the way, not this random turn nearly everybody mentality that some seem to have. Too many of us, and the problem of food supply becomes evident. With this group dead, it is time to head back to the castle and report such, as well as see to the new powers of the chalice. And then back to Falkreath to see if Astrid has decided to be smart or not. Rather than wait until sundown, or even later, I snuck my way back into Anger's Mill and took a position on the roof of the largest building. There are few who work here, and it took me only about half an hour of watching to figure out which of the distant figures Codrier was. That he made himself an easy target only helped me, of course. He stood there, banging away with his hammer while others cut or transported wood. Him being alone and unobserved was only a matter of time. And when it happened, I was ready, with my bound bow and arrow. The bow vanished from my hands, and the arrow from Caudrier's body when I dispelled the weapon, meaning that there will be a hole in the body for him to complete bleeding out, and it will be hard to point to a specific weapon as what killed the man. As for me, I continued my walk towards Dawnstar, where I needed to have a similar discussion with Legelf. Legelf and I had a small conversation that started with confirming that he had sent me the letter, and ended with him on the floor of his home completely drained of blood. With both him and his wife dead in the same manner, I'm sure the city will come up with all manner of theories and explanations, none of which will now involve me. As I said, only a fool advertises to a killer that they know. Appreciation only lasts until it would be to their advantage to reveal this knowledge, and I will not allow such a time to arrive. Go join your wife, Legelf. I'm sure she's got a few things on her mind to tell you about.